So we'll call the meeting to order, and the first item is approval of the agenda. I have a motion moved by Sherry and seconded by Bill that the agenda for the regular council meeting held May the 12th, 2020 be approved as presented. Are there any amendments?
None.
Okay, so as presented. All those in favor? Is anyone opposed? Hearing none, carried. So we'll do the same thing we did last time. If there is a no, then we'll have recorded vote. Okay. Is there any disclosure of pecuniary interest and general nature thereof by any item on today's agenda by any member of council? Hearing none, we'll note that. I have a motion moved by Bill McDonald, seconded by Sherry Wan, that the minutes of the regular council meeting held April 28th, 2020 be approved as presented.
Sorry it took so long. It's taking forever to load.
Oh, okay.
That's what it's, there we go, coming. There.
Do you want me to go back and read that one? Okay. Questions or comments on the minutes? Anyone voting no? Motion carried. Okay. Next is mayor's remarks, just some brief remarks. We're still doing well. Our numbers for KFLNA are down for the virus. People are doing really well at staying isolating and paying attention to where each other are, and stores, going to the grocery store isn't fun anymore. You go and get your groceries and get out, but our local stores and restaurants and businesses are doing a great job at keeping things wiped down and keeping us safe. This is Nurses Week, so hats off to all of the nurses that are working hard. Always something I thought I wanted to be, but when something like this comes, I'm sort of glad I went into politics instead. Okay, Deputy Mayor, do you have anything to add?
No, I don't, Your Worship.
And I want to say a thank you to staff here. They're coming to work every day and they're isolating and they're keeping each other safe, and everything gets wiped down and they're very cautious. And Kathy and I and the HR committee spoke about starting to get ready to open up and the things that we're going to need to look at. One of which is a plexiglass divide at the main counter and masks and keeping people 6 feet apart. So once we decide that it's the right thing to do, we'll be prepared. Plexiglass is hard to get, and apparently in a lot of places is being back ordered, but I think Andy's been working on it, and I think we're going to be able to get what we need to fix our front counter so it'll be safe. Okay, that's it for me. Does anyone
Madam
have
Ward,
anything?
Madam Mayor, Bill here. A little bit of good news. I was talking to the fellow who owns the restaurant yesterday in Plevna, and I asked him, how is his business doing, thinking that it might have been negative. And his comment was that he's never been busier than he is right now. On Friday nights and most nights that they're open, they cannot hardly keep up with the orders that are coming in. All takeout, but it was really quite a good news story, and I thought it should be passed on. Thank you.
Excellent. Yeah, I think the same here. I think takeout is very good, and there's some groups on Facebook that organize meals. I was able to have one of the Indian meals on Sunday, and it was excellent. So yeah, there are some good things happening to situations like this, and people are coming together. Okay, let's move on to staff reports. And our first is Development Services, the construction reports. I'll read the motion and then we can ask for any comments. So moved by Tom Dewey, seconded by Cindy Kelsey. The council received the construction details April 2020 report as prepared by the Manager of Development Services, CBO, for information. Any questions or comments on Andy's report?
Tom here, Your Worship. I just like to, considering, the economic conditions that we're going through right now and the uncertainty of the future, And it is very encouraging report to see that we have 6 new res units and 4 new seasonal units year to date. So I think that's pretty encouraging for our area.
Yes, for sure. Andy, do you want to speak a minute about building permits that are issued and what's happening with getting started on building houses?
Sure, through you, Madam Mayor. It was starting off to be a very busy year. I think it's still going to be a busy year. I was able to issue all the permits I had before the April 4th deadline to get things rolling. I do have probably another 3 new home applications that I haven't issued yet, but I'm anticipating they may open things up, whenever the emergency order gets renewed there on the 19th or 20th is my guess, but it's only a guess.
Well, Ford said today there's going to be major announcements on Thursday. So we'll have to watch Thursday's announcements and see what's coming.
Mhm.
Okay.
Can I
Any
just ask,
question
Your Worship, can I just ask Andy a quick question here? Andy, I'm not sure if this person is one of the 3, but apparently his building permit is hinging on getting a septic inspection. And he's waiting for the approval from the health department. He said he should have that last week. And I asked him to give you a call because I thought, and I think the permit is contingent on him getting that septic. So I suggested that he call you. I said, if that's in order, and I might be saying something wrong here, but I said I felt that you would say, okay, go ahead and order your material, but you wouldn't order the permit yet until you got the okay. But I don't know, would that be true or not?
I always make sure they have their septic permit approved before I issue the building permit.
Right.
That way they're not locating their house in the ideal location for their septic system.
Yeah, okay, so that's kind of what, yeah, but this is an addition, and I said that all he wants to do is maybe get some of his material ordered now so that, when this thing does open up, there won't be a surge and he'll end up getting short of some stuff. So I said I felt that, well, anyway, I'll ask him to call you anyway.
But
you cut out, Tom, or?
For me?
Oh.
yeah, I could hear Tom.
Okay.
If he has all the paperwork in and the septic's been approved, I can still issue building permits.
Fair enough.
I'm
what I wanted. That's what I was saying. Okay, fair enough.
Yeah, I am still issuing permits. I'm just making it clear that construction can't proceed until the order is lifted and that I won't be doing any inspections until the order is lifted.
Okay, thank you very much. That's the answer I thought. Okay, thank you.
Okay. Okay, any other questions or comments on this motion? Is there anyone voting no to the motion? Carried. Okay, I have a motion moved by Cindy and seconded by Tom that council receive the planning report as prepared by the Development Services Assistant for information. Discussion? Hearing none. Anyone voting no? Motion's carried. Okay. I have a motion moved by Brent Cameron, seconded by Nikki Gowdy, that council receive the OTF grant update as prepared by the Manager of Development Services, CBO, for information. Discussion on that?
Through you, Madam Mayor, I have a question. It's Nikki.
Okay.
Andy, when you start the retrofit of these ball diamonds, what is your plan going forward? I know that Mountain Grove's relatively new. Charbet Lake was resurfaced a couple of years ago. Arden only has grass. Do you have any details on what your plan is to resurface them?
Through you, Madam Mayor, the plan is to add 2 inches of the red clay mix to each field. Ideally, they recommend that you have 4 inches total. So I believe that would bring Charbet Lakes Field to 4 inches, and Mountain Groves, Parham and Arden would have the 2 inches and should be topped up at a later date.
Will any work be done before you top up Arden? Putting it on top of the grass isn't going to be very beneficial.
Yes, the contractor that's doing the job, they've looked at all the fields and they're aware that Arden needs more work than the other 3. And that was included in their price.
Okay, thank you very much.
Okay, good. Any other questions or comments?
I could through you, Madam Mayor, please.
Yes, Sherry?
Just a quick question, Andy. From what I understand is that the grant money is specific to certain projects at each ball field.
Louder, Sherry?
I can't hear.
Oh, sorry. Can you hear me now?
Yes.
Okay. From what I understand, that the money is specific to certain projects at each ball field. Is that correct?
That's correct. Each field was treated equally. That was part of the grant application. They wanted it simple and straightforward.
Thank
Okay. Okay. Is anyone voting no to this motion? Motion's carried. Okay, now bear with me. This is a long one. Sit back. Moved by Victor and seconded by Brent. Whereas on March 17th, 2020, the Government of Ontario announced that it was declaring a state of emergency under Section 740.1 of the Emergency Management and Civil Protection Act, so that the province could use every power possible to protect the health and safety of all individuals and families during the COVID-19 pandemic. And whereas on Friday, April 3rd, 2020, the Government of Ontario gave notice of changes to the Ontario Regulation 8220, being the order for the temporary closure of places of non-essential businesses made under subsection 7.0.2 of the Emergency Management and Civil Protection Act, which reduced the list of essential businesses permitted to continue operation during the provincial state of emergency. Whoever's moving paper, do you want to just mute your, okay. And whereas Section 30 of the new Schedule 2 of Ontario Regulation 8220 has been generally interpreted to prohibit residential construction where a building permit had not been issued prior to April 4th, 2020. And whereas residential construction represents a significant number of jobs in rural Ontario and forms an integral part of the rural Ontario economy through considerable direct, indirect, and induced impacts. And whereas on April 27th, 2020, the Government of Ontario released a framework for reopening our province, which outlines the criteria Ontario's Chief Medical Officer of Health and health experts will use to advise the government on the loosening of emergency measures, as well as guiding principles for the safe, gradual reopening of businesses, services, and public spaces. And whereas stage 1 of the framework will consider the opening of workplaces that can immediately meet or modify operations to meet public health guidance and occupational health and safety requirements. And whereas residential construction in rural areas is characterized by single-family dwelling types situated on large lots, which are attended by a very limited number of tradespersons and contractors at any given time, and are being constructed for specific clientele with planned occupancy dates. Now therefore it be it resolved that the Council of the Township of Central Frontenac requests that the Government of Ontario consider lifting the prohibition on residential construction where no building permit had been issued prior to April 4th, 2020, in all instances where such construction can take place in accordance with the principles outlined in the government's framework for reopening our province at its earliest opportunity in order to alleviate the economic hardships being experienced by rural Ontario's construction sector and the residents and families which it serves. And that this resolution be forwarded to the office of the Honorable Doug Ford, Premier of Ontario, and the Honorable Steve Clark, Minister of Municipal Affairs and Housing. And further, that a copy of this resolution be sent to the Association of Municipalities of Ontario, the Eastern Ontario Wardens Caucus, and to all rural Ontario municipalities requesting their support. Discussion on the motion? It's pretty clear.
Madam Mayor, Bill here.
Yes. Go ahead.
Bill,
Bill?
my concern with this is in regard to the regulations that are being put in place for reopening or continuing businesses. Will there be some sort of expectation on the part of the municipality to inspect these sites to ensure that all of the regulations are being followed vis-a-vis 3 workers on site or 5 workers or whatever? I'm wondering if there will be a blowback saying, okay, are you prepared to ensure that government regulations are being kept up?
My understanding is if the province allows this to happen, then their inspectors would be the ones that would be enforcing the rule. That's what's happened with other things that have opened up.
Yeah.
Is it subject to the provincial government legislation and inspectors?
That's my understanding as well.
Okay.
And North Frontenac has already passed their resolution, and so has South. I'm not sure when the islands meeting is.
And EOWC will be having a Zoom meeting in the next couple of months.
Okay. I'm
Hopefully.
satisfied with.
Okay. Any other questions or comments? Okay, is anyone voting no? Motion is carried. Okay, we are at Public Works. Tyson is with us. I have a motion moved by Elwin Burke, seconded by Victor Hayes, that council receive the Public Works activity report as prepared by the Public Works Manager dated May the 12th, 2020 for information. Any discussion?
Madam Mayor, Bill again here. They also received this morning the various roads. My question to Tyson is that, well, no legend here. They've got initials here as to the operators were, but I have no clue who KM is or MT or PC. I didn't know whether I didn't know whether those were computer models that I wasn't aware of or what they were. So I like the information, but.
And thanks for sending that along too, Tyson.
Yes, I think it's excellent.
Yeah, hopefully it's a step in the right direction. Can everyone hear me, by the way?
Yes?
Yep.
Good.
Okay.
I can look into that, Bill. I'll make that edit.
That way we can get to know who works for us, I guess, and who's in the grader.
Yeah, that sounds good. That sounds great.
Just Madam Mayor, through you, is this the time we can ask Tyson a question?
Yes, you can.
Tyson, I'm just wondering, under the circumstances that we're dealing with now, do you expect that we might have any issues in getting dust suppressant? I know it's snowing, don't get me wrong, but it's going to turn warm one of these days, and I'm wondering if you've got any information in regard to the availability of dust suppressant.
Through you, Madam Mayor, Steve has been in touch with the company, and it looks feasible to be able to, I think Steve said 2 weeks from today, so it'd be 2 weeks from Monday actually, is what they're tentatively scheduling for some dust suppression. We were trying to hold off until the after the gravel contract, but it's the weather's not letting us. We're gonna have, it's too dusty. We're gonna have to get out sooner.
Thank you, Madam Mayor.
Okay. Any other questions?
Just a quick one.
Okay.
Can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay. It has to deal with culverts. I know you made a mention of checking them and replacing them and the annual culvert order. I was wondering if you could give a little perspective as to where we stand relative to the past. Now, I know that might be a little difficult, but do we have a sense that we're up or down from last year?
Through you, Madam Mayor, it is tricky for me to compare, but one thing I do have to compare off other years is the budget. So the budget hasn't changed much over the years. Now, it looks to me like we basically, I'm not speaking for other managers, but we basically have maxed it out every year. And we are definitely going to max it out this year, and we could actually put more money in there for next year. It's one of those things that's going to take a very long time to get ahead of right now. So yeah, to answer your question about compared to other years, we're spending the same amount of money, but I can't really say for how many they did in other years, because every size is a different cost, right? So I can look into that a little deeper for you, Brad.
Sure, that would be great. Thanks.
Your Worship, Your Worship, just one quick comment. The report for grade is great. I don't know what your plans are going through the summer. Was it possible to get that updated maybe once every month? Because as the roads change throughout the summer and people ask about it, we would be able to have that more current information.
You mean the grading schedule?
The grading schedule, yeah. Is that something?
Yes, absolutely. That's something we can do once a month. I think Heather asked the operators my assistant asked the operators to update that bi-weekly. Like, they update it immediately in their machines. And I think she asked them to be submitted bi-weekly, but monthly sounds like a really good time to update council at each meeting.
Oh, that's wonderful. Thank you. Thank you. That's great.
Okay. No other questions or comments? Is anyone voting no to the motion? Motion's carried. Okay, I have a motion moved by Nikki and seconded by Brent. Whereas RFP PW 2020-01 was released April 17 and closed May 1st, 2020 with 5 bids submitted. And whereas the request for proposal met all requirements of the tender process under the township's procurement policy, including the total acquisition cost. Now therefore be it resolved that council ratify the decision of the Public Works Manager to award the contract to Jewel Engineering, Inc. in the amount of $16,545.46, including HST. And further, that the Public Works Manager be authorized to obtain a purchase order. Is in fact that number including HST? Yes? Okay.
That's good.
See that?
It says.
Yeah. Any further discussion?
Oh, just a little bit, Madam Mayor. Number one, I'm gratified that SNC Lavalin didn't make the cut on this. I'm a little, I didn't think they were bidder on this, but who knows? My real question is, if we go ahead with this, do we have a sense of the timeline in terms of when the work may be completed?
Tyson?
Through you, Madam Mayor, the work will, I have to pull up the RFP, but the date is in the original RFP, but looks like in the next week or two, they'll be complete.
Thank you.
Okay. All right. Anyone voting no to the motion? Motion's carried. Okay, next we have motion moved by Tom and seconded by Bill whereas the township has many seasonal and unmaintained roads, and whereas the strategic plan for the township directs that we have a roads needs study completed and determine the municipality's obligations for roads leading to a single house / low volume roads. And whereas the township has completed a roads needs study and has improved asset management processes in place to manage the cost and risks associated with our road infrastructure. And now therefore be it resolved that council receive the signage and policy for seasonal and unmaintained roads report for information. And further that staff be directed to develop a policy to identify the status of the seasonal / unmaintained roads and the use of unopened or abandoned road allowances. Discussion.
Madam Mayor, it's Victor.
Yes.
First of all, a question and then a comment after that. It says that there have been recent incidents. Were there complaints, or how did we find out about these problems?
Through you, Madam Mayor. The way we found out about these was through accidents. There had been 2 vehicles this winter that went on to roads similar to the ones that we're mentioning here, and there were accidents which were followed up by possible ongoing lawsuits.
Okay, thank you, Tyson. So then the comment that I have is that Google Maps and Apple Maps are open to having corrections given to them. We had a problem with our private lane. It was incorrectly named, and so people couldn't find us. And all we had to do was submit a request to have our private lane name changed. So I think if they received a list from the township and they understood that it's coming from the Public Works Department of a township, they might be quick to update their maps showing that these roads are not generally usable. Thank you, Madam Mayor.
Through you, Madam Mayor, that's a fantastic idea, Victor. I'll look into that immediately.
That is good to know because I've taken some back roads that Google suggested. Not nice.
If I may add a further comment, Madam Mayor.
Sure.
That is definitely an excellent step that we can take and does help protect us. But I think that there is still the reality that we have liability issues with sort of abandoned roads that are in our name that, regardless of whether they can see it on a map or whatnot, we're still kind of hanging out there liability wise. So I still would suggest that we have a policy to make sure that they're identified and signed appropriately.
Right.
For sure.
I think this is long overdue.
Yeah, I would agree with that too. But if people are using their GPS and when they call up a certain road, they see that this is not maintained, then perhaps they will have the common sense to not take it.
Yes.
Thank you.
Madam Mayor, Bill here. We've actually had the occasion when Highway 7 has been closed where Google Maps have actually sent traffic up and down the Bell Line Road, supposedly to go out of Maberly. But if you go straight through on that, it's not even for township. But when they go straight through, they come down to a road that's actually known as Doran Road, which is actually not maintained in any way, shape, or form. And I actually was working and noticed one of those very large tankers that actually have extra sets of wheels that are like about 100, well over 100 feet long, coming up and turning down the Bell Line Road. And I ran out and stopped them and said, there's no way you can go down even the Bell Line Road, let alone the Doran Road. And the guy that was escorting them said, well, I have Google Maps that say that they can go right straight through there. I said, maybe they do, but you cannot go through there. You can't go down the Bell Line Road with that truck there with that huge tank on. So I don't know how to actually inform through public information that some of the roads that they're showing as alternates, there has to be a way of limiting the kind of traffic go on those roads. You might be able to go through there with a 4x4 half ton, but you're not going to take a truck loaded down excessively. So even though we're putting up signs that are unmaintained or all the rest of it, I don't know where the public information begins and ends in which to actually give drivers the information that allows them to take certain modes of transportation down those roads. But I think it's an good initial step. Thank you, Madam Mayor.
Okay. I think some of that needs to be through the OPP to be informed as well about what roads can take what size of equipment. It seems to me there is an app that you can download about roads. Maybe Tyson, you know more about that.
Through you, Madam Mayor. Yes, to answer your question, Bill, that is a good idea about identifying, and I think to inform the public, I will keep it simple. I think it should be done as signage. And this report is to ask permission to develop the policy. So included in that policy, maybe we will find that at each one of these locations where we say a road is unmaintained beyond this point, maybe it's as simple as having another sign underneath that says no heavy trucks or some kind of weight restriction or length restriction, but that can all be researched. And to answer your question, Fran, we've been looking into, I went to a meeting with the Frontenac County with the other townships, and the app you're referring to is called Municipal 511. If everybody wants to look into that a little bit, it's very helpful. I think the county actually was willing to pay for it too, or help cost share on that. So look up Municipal 511, and I'll write down to provide a little info about it at the next council meeting.
Okay. I knew I had heard it.
Tyson, I think and I think Tyson, you're correct. I think the county was paying for the first year, if I'm not mistaken. And then I think we pay for it after that.
I'll follow up.
Okay, good.
Madam Mayor, just a quick question. It's Brent. I don't want this to sound glib, but it is a question. In the preamble, we're talking about determining obligations for roads leading to a single house or low volume roads. I have to ask, what's the difference between a road leading to a single house and a driveway? Because if you have someone who has a road going and they own the property in whole, the road is going, it's surrounded by their property, it's going through their property and going to a single dwelling. Is there a length or some sort of defining characteristic where we would say it actually constitutes a lane or a road? I know it sounds like a weird question, but I'm not sure what the difference between a road leading to a single dwelling on a fully dedicated piece of property. What's the difference between a road and a driveway?
Actually, I can answer part of that. On 509 as an example, when the new road was put in, the old road was left and is still township property. So there's a few properties. My daughter lives on one that is an old township road that was there that is partial, and then her driveway comes off of that. There's a few of them where the old road wound in and out and in and out, and houses were built. So that's the parts that we're dealing with a lot of those situations, is they were township road allowances.
So just in my clarification, we are talking about roads which at some point in time had some sort of an official status. They were on our books. Because on the other side of Coal Lake from me, there are roads which only service one dwelling, and they are once they leave township property, they're on the private property of that dwelling, and they don't service anyone else's property. They're very long, and they could be mistaken for a road, but they only lead to one place, and they're fully subsumed. So they wouldn't meet that definition, I would assume.
Right. Tyson, do you want to speak to that, or Cindy?
Well, I think Cindy is going to be able to speak to this, but just to vaguely answer your question, Brent, is all we're asking for right now is to develop this policy. So all of that research is going to be done. And what you've asked is the $1 million question that I've been trying to talk to other townships about, is how do we define this? So I'll turn this over to Cindy because I know she does want to have some input.
And I guess my only comment is that we have sort of come across the Public Works Department has sort of flagged certain roads that nobody really knows the status. They've been kind of sort of maintaining them and doing some plowing and not sure. But when you actually look at it, there's no actual acknowledgement of the road. It's just like, oh, well, we've always plowed it, so let's continue to plow it. So I think we're just trying to get an inventory of those types of roads that are kind of out there that we may be doing more work than we need to be doing because we don't really have any responsibility, or there might be ones more like what Brent's talking about where they're municipal roads and they've always been municipal roads, and even though that they only go to one house, we're obligated. So it's just trying to fine tune. There's just so many different classifications out there just to have a better idea of what they all are. And then like it was pointed out previously about some of the road names on the roads need study schedule needing to be updated. And part of that process would be to determine, to look at those roads and determine which ones are municipal and which ones are private, because there's still a lot of confusion. And some roads that are municipal to a certain point and then turn private, but we still maintain them to a certain extent, which we shouldn't be. So it's just to sort of get a better inventory of what we have.
Thank you.
Okay, any other questions or comments?
Madam Mayor, Bill here. Just keep in mind in roads, I'll give you an example down in Hinchinbrook, the road going into LD Power Sports, it's going to one house, but it's actually a township road of which we should be maintaining into that property. It's only what, 50, 75 feet. But I do not know whether or not we plow it or maintain it in any way, shape, or form. But that, in actual fact, is a township road into that house. Just wanted to throw that out there for you. Thank you, Madam Mayor.
Can put that on his list.
Yeah, so we actually do currently plow that section, and it's one of the ones that are on our list for Cindy and I to figure out, because I agree, it's one of those weird ones where it's not even much of an advantage to LD Power Sports for us to plow it, because we go in at 4 a.m. and then there's a big snowbank, and if they don't want to plow it till 8, it's just all these roads need to be looked at. So
yeah, good idea. Okay, is there anyone voting no to the motion? Motion's carried. Great. We have a motion moved by Sherry and seconded by Bill. Whereas the owner of the Charlotte Lake Retirement Residence located at 14244 Road 38 sees a safety issue with the current method of patient transfer and wants to improve safety. Now therefore be it resolved that council receive the information provided by the Public Works Manager regarding a request for an additional entrance to be installed at the Charlotte Lake Retirement Residence. And further, that council authorize the Public Works Manager to investigate further options and consult other stakeholders regarding the details and the long-term benefits of this additional parking lane. Discussion?
Makes sense, Madam Mayor.
Okay. No other comments? Anyone voting no? Motion carried. I have seen the ambulance blocking traffic, trying to get folks loaded. Yes. All right, we have a motion moved by Cindy Kelsey and seconded by Tom Dewey. Whereas the CAO clerk received correspondence from Jeff Michi dated April 23rd and 26th, 2020 regarding Cranberry Lake Road. And whereas the letter was referred to staff and council for comment, now therefore be it resolved that council acknowledge receipt of the letter from Mr. Michi, and further that council confirm that staff take no action with respect to pursuing any road widening or realignment at this time. Discussion? Anyone voting no? All those in favor? Or sorry, carried. Okay. I have a motion moved by Victor and seconded by Nikki. Whereas the current schedule of the Charlotte Lake Village reconstruction project was to begin after Labor Day, with a completion date of early summer 2021. And whereas the Public Works Manager, along with the consultant contract administrator, agrees that the majority of the contract could be completed in 2020 to minimize the disruption to local businesses and take advantage of the reduced amount of traffic and tourists due to the pandemic. Now, therefore, be it resolved that Council approve the recommendation of the Public Works Manager to shift the start date of the Charlotte Lake Village project from the fall of 2020 to the early summer of 2020. And further, that Council authorize the Public Works Manager to issue an addendum to the contract to shift the start date closer to the award of the contract of May 19th, 2020. Tyson, do you want to speak to this for a moment?
Absolutely. This is one that really excites me. I think that although this pandemic's been a struggle, I think that I'm seeing a bit of a silver lining here. I hope that this can save us a little bit of money, and I hope it can help out the local businesses. The Charlotte Lake Business Group is in full support. They've attached a letter. I've reached out personally to Gordon Dean, and he has got my back as well on this. And everyone else I've talked to is in full support. So there's not much else to speak to other than what's in the report, but I'm happy to answer any questions.
Okay.
It's Tom here, Your Worship. I would just like to congratulate Tyson on taking this in the local businesses about this change and getting their input. I think this is a very perceptive move, and I think it's well done. And lastly, Tyson, I just wanted to ask you: will this have any change or impact on the grant?
Through you, Madam Mayor, this will not impact the grant.
Okay, thank you.
I've reached out to the province and Canada, and the grant actually, we recently found out that the grant actually we could have continued to use until 2026. We had until 2026 to implement everything inside the contract. So we're hoping that this grant can continue right on into and this will speed the infrastructure portion up, and we're hoping this will bump the downtown revitalization portion up a little bit into 2021 as well, and tie it in even nicer than before. So no, the grant won't be affected.
Good job. Thank you.
Madam Mayor, Bill here. I think this is very positive direction to go in, because I have a very firm belief that given the amount of spending that's been going on to fight the virus at both the federally and provincial level, I think if we had not begin this project, we might run a chance of a change in direction and funding of these kinds of projects. So I think we'll suit us very well if we would move forward with it. Thank you, Madam Mayor.
Okay, any other comments or questions?
It's Tyson again. I agree with Bill, and I think right now the government's going to be excited to get a project like this going. I think it helps the economy too.
Yes, I think you're right.
I agree. Thank you.
Okay, anyone voting no? Motion's carried. Let the work begin. Okay, I have a motion moved by Brett and seconded by Elwin. Whereas tender PW 2020-02 was released on April 22nd, 2020 and closed on May 11th, 2020 for the supply and placement of gravel as prescribed in the document. And whereas Gemmell Sand and Gravel was the lowest of the received bids, the Public Works Manager has reviewed the bids and recommends that they be accepted as the successful bidder. Now therefore be it resolved that Council award Gemmell Sand and Gravel Limited as the successful bidder in the amount of $259,133.90, excluding HST, and that the Public Works Manager be authorized to issue a purchase order for the work. Discussion?
Go for it.
Okay. Anyone voting no? Motion's carried.
That was my last report, so I'd just like to thank council for supporting me in all those reports. Thank you.
Madam Mayor, may I ask Tyson a question before he leaves?
Sure.
Tyson, we got this information from Luby in regard to the Salmon River Bridge work. I was under the impression when they cleaned up that work was already complete. Work on the Highway 7 at the Arden Bridge going to be continue on?
Through you, Madam Mayor. Well, am I unmuted here? Yeah, I am. Sorry. Jamie and I were both involved with a teleconference yesterday for an update on the project, and they seemed a little sheepish to come out and say it, but it almost sounds like a lot of this work is deficiency work. Now, some of it was line painting, but there was some milling and some concrete removal and replacement. And like I said, I think they were beating around the bush a little bit, but I'm wondering if some of it is deficiency work and some warranty work like that. So I'm not sure if this was scheduled from last year or not, but as far as I know, it's not major work.
That's good. Okay, we have no committee or other reports. There's no delegations, so we're at correspondence. I have a motion moved by Victor and seconded by Bill that council receive for information the following correspondence, and it's 1 to 5. Any discussion?
It's Victor, Madam Mayor.
Madam Mayor, it's Brent. I'm the fifth item from the Township of Armour, the letter resolution regarding rural high-speed internet connectivity. I'm wondering if people would be amenable to that being pulled so we could possibly provide our own support for that.
It's being worked on by EORN at the very moment, so I don't remember the exact motion. Victor, you had something to say?
Exactly the same thing, Your Honor.
Okay.
I don't think, Madam Mayor,
Yes.
if I might, I don't think there's anything in their resolution that would necessarily conflict or preclude what EORN is doing. In fact, I think it complements it well. I think it's just recognizing in light of challenges we're having with COVID and connectivity that that the provincial government should really put a lot of emphasis on this. I think it actually strengthens support for what EORN's doing, and in that light, I would like to see his support for it.
Okay, now we don't have a resolution right now, but
We could do it do you want to do it for the next meeting, or do you want me to write one up?
what would you prefer?
We could do it for the next meeting. It doesn't have a specific date.
I think it can hold till the next meeting. It'll give us some time to, I think we'll give people sufficient time to put something together if everyone's amenable.
Sure, I made a note here to pull that and put it up for the next meeting.
Okay.
Mayor, Bill here. I'm wondering if it compromise your position as being chair of the EORN committee that's actually working on this. Would this help your position, or would it compromise you in any way, shape, or form, given that both the federal and provincial governments have invested in this very project?
No, this is the project that EORN's working on right now is the cell gap. This is broadband, and so this is something where there are funds out there, and we need to push the government to be using these funds. Down the road, EORN might be applying for them, but no, I don't think it's any problem to support this.
Okay. Just comment.
Okay.
Thank you, Madam.
So we'll bring it back for the next meeting, and we'll have Brent and Victor as the movers and seconders. Everyone's okay with that?
Sure.
Sounds good.
Okay, so is anyone opposing the motion to approve the correspondence? Motion's carried. Okay, is there there's no bylaws, is there any notices of motion? Is there any giving of notices of motion?
None.
Is there any new or other business?
No.
And there's no closed session.
No.
And I have a motion to adjourn.
Before we go, Madam Mayor, what I'd like to remind all of the members about our mock Committee of Adjustment on Thursday afternoon, and to make sure that everybody is available for the meeting on the 21st, because given the motions we passed earlier in regard to wanting to open up for construction, we have a real backlog of Committee of Adjustment business to actually help that move along. So I'd like to make sure, remind everybody to be available. Thank you.
Yes. Thank you.
You have to make sure you let Crystal know. I think Cindy Kelsey was the only one she did not hear from. For that way, then she can send you the link.
So Cindy, you need to let Crystal know.
Okay,
And you don't even have to cut your hair.
good.
Okay. If there's nothing else for the good of the corporation, I have a motion moved by Tom and seconded by Cindy that bylaw 2020-28 being a bylaw to confirm the regular meeting of council held on May the 12th, 2020 be read a first, second, and third time and finally passed this 12th day of May 2020. And further that this meeting be adjourned until 4 p.m. May the 26th, 2020 to be held virtually. Anyone voting no? Motion's carried. Good meeting, folks.
Stay safe, everyone.